Very handsome.
Hi, my name is Bruce Boldrin. I'm founder of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance, and I'm here today to host our show, Meaningful Meetings with Jaki Baskow of Baskow Talent and Las Vegas Speakers Bureau. And today I'm particularly pleased as well to have Clint Holmes. And anybody who's been in Vegas over the years has heard that name. If you've been in a corporate meeting, entertainment, Clint has been entertaining us not only in Vegas, but in New York and European capitals throughout his career. And Jaki is a legend of her own in Vegas. She has really had an extraordinary career there, and we're going to get a chance to talk about that. And ordinarily, I would be sharing with you two other quick slides that I can't personally see right now, so I'm going to pass over it. But if you can see them, you'll see that our organization is all about helping people improve their performance through people and practice the golden rule in business. So I'm going to stop that share and I'm going to get right into it. Starting with you, Clint. First off, what's your connection to Vegas? How did you get there? And what was it like when you got there?
Well, I've had two stages of Vegas. I first started as an opening act when all of the great comics had the Don Rickles, Joan Rivers, Rodney Dangerfield, those type of artists carried an opening act with them, and usually it was a singer. And I did a lot of that through, I would say, the '80s in particular. Uh, but now I am a resident artist and have been since 1999. Um, that particular story is interesting. One of the last moguls, entertainment moguls, I think in Vegas is Steve Wynn. Was Steve Wynn, and Steve saw me at a retinitis pigmentosa benefit and told me he had a room that he built for Harry Belafonte, Sammy Davis Jr., Stephen Eady, and they had either passed on or they weren't working anymore. And he wanted to know if I would come out and perform in the room. And he gave me the proverbial offer you can't refuse. He said, I will pay you for a year, even if I close the show in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was living in New York at the time. So I came out here in 1999. The show ran through August. And by then I had offers from three other hotels. And I signed with Harrah's for a year. That turned into 7 years. That turned into me living in Las Vegas and my whole family being here and knowing wonderful people like Jackie. And so it's kind of a two-parter. I started as an opening act. And you'd come in for a weekend and all you saw was the strip. There was the strip and you never really got off the strip because you were only here for 2 or 3 days. And then when you move here, as my friends in New York used to say, which hotel do you live in? I said, no, 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 I have a house. So yeah, so my history is long, but the past 25 years, I've lived here.
Well, great. We're going to get into more of that. And I'm sorry we lost you from New York. We're still here,
You
Clint.
didn't, you didn't, you didn't. I was there last week and I'll be back in May and I'll be back in October. You didn't lose me. I love New York.
Well, that's great to hear. So, Jackie, how about you? You came to Vegas as if I recall, as a very young lady with $300 in your pocket or something like
Wow.
I did. I came out here to work for a movie studio, and my clients lost their financing, and my boss sold his movie script and moved to LA. It was called Batman. He was the creator of Batman.
that. Wow.
Yeah.
Heard of it.
So, and how did that get you to Vegas, and what did you start out doing?
I opened Telly Savalas. I went to work for him part-time, and he talked me into opening a talent agency here. And I broke monopoly that was here for 25 years, threats on my life, bullet holes in my car, and here I am. I
Well,
certainly,
we're going to talk about those bullet holes.
and I'm celebrating 50 years in business, and I get to see amazing people like Clint Holmes. I'm sorry.
Well, so Clint, what was it like when you first got to Vegas? I mean, let's go back into the time machine. It was a different world then, right? And by the way, Vegas is one of the few cities in the world where you can watch it grow because there's a
Yeah.
hill in the Red Rock Forest. I think it's called Turtle Hill or some Turtleback Hill, and you can climb that hill and literally see the last house in Vegas. So I've watched it grow. You must have really seen it change. What was it like culturally? The stereotype, it was a little bit, that whole Ocean's 11 thing. What was it really like?
Well, yeah. So I'll go to when I moved here because, as I said, when I first came, I was here for 2 or 3 days, and all you were on the strip, you did your show. But when I moved here, Um, so much has changed in the past 25 years. I think that there was an image, especially in New York, that Las Vegas was kind of a place where old entertainers went to die. That was the idea, and they had this kind of snub nose in the air about Las Vegas. And of course, once I got here, I realized that some of the most talented people in the world lived here. And then, of course, the big stars. But when I came here, when I got my deal with Harris, I was the only singer who had a headline room on the Strip. It was all magicians and cirque shows, novelty acts, and this guy who basically people didn't know in Vegas came in, and there was a place for me. There was a slot for me, if you will. Um, so if you got into a cab and said, "Hey, where do I go to hear a good music show?" They would say, "Oh, go to Harris," because that was kind of the only one.
Well, hold
Then
on,
I,
let me stop you here. Are you
yeah,
basically saying that accidentally you might have been one of the first musicians in residence in Vegas? I mean, that would be
in, in
Celine
residence,
Dion and who now is there?
Celine, of course, Celine came later. Yeah, I'm not going to say I was the first, but at that time there was Danny Gans, who was a impressionist, who did music, but an impressionist. After I got here, the Shintas came into town, and then the big explosion happened when Celine Dion came in, but it's interesting. How have I seen it grow? I've seen it grow where my room, the room I was in at Harris, sat about 700 people. Now the rooms they're building seat 7,000 people, you know, um, because it's for Bruno Mars and it's for Lady Gaga and, the huge shows like that. So I kind of feel like I've seen it. And I bet you Jackie agrees with this too. I've seen it come to a place where they had residents that were, if you could came to Vegas, you could see Lance Burton, you could see me, you could see the Shintas, you could see Danny Gans, like pretty much guarantee we're going to Vegas, we can see them, right? That was a residence. Then it became the residence became Celine Dion and big names like that. And now the residences last a week or two. Lionel
Yeah,
Richie be here for 2 weeks. Gaga will be here for 2 weeks. Michael Bublé will be here for 2 weeks. So it's changed. The superstars have gotten bigger. The rooms have gotten bigger, and 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 I love it. I mean, it's an incredibly exciting town to live in, because everything and everybody. This is no longer a place anyone could say old singers go to die, because the best and youngest and brightest stars come here all the time. It's incredible. Um,
absolutely.
So
I have to
Jackie,
say
how
something,
is,
Bruce.
well, I
I want to
wanted to
say
ask
something
you,
real
go ahead.
quick. I saw Clint's show one time in 2 months, 16 times. I bring every one of my clients there. He gave something to the show and to his audience. He had a full band and he sang and he danced and he made it feel like you were up on that stage. And I miss it. And now we get to see him at the Smith Center here. And I think a lot of what's changed here is people, the hotels, there's so much going on here. A lot of the entertainers, even the big celebrities, they're not filling their showrooms. Don't you agree, Clint? And
they're
they're
not
trying to
filming the showrooms.
multitask into the corporate world.
Yeah, I don't know how they're filling. Did you say filling the showrooms?
Right, the big
Yeah, I
celebrities.
don't I don't really know the answer to that. But you kind of go, how could they? You
You're
know what I
right.
mean? How could they? And then with the advent of the sphere, which
Yes.
is like a whole nother level that none of us ever imagined 25 years ago. You know, so now you've got the Eagles coming in, and you've got the Grateful Dead, and you've got these super rock groups coming in. It's exciting, and it's exciting. It's really
But
exciting.
Jackie, hold on, were you saying that they are not filling the halls?
I think what's happening in the town here, there is so much going on that when people come in, they don't know which shows to go to and
I
how to
do know
queue.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear what you're saying now. Yeah, I think it's true.
There's so
So,
much going on. It's overwhelming.
well, and then of course the talent is now, as Clint pointed out, they're staying a week or two. So, all of those people would have been coming to one show in the Sphere, and now instead you're spreading it out. But again, Jack, I want to get into a little bit, and both of you, how has the culture changed?
Okay.
New York, um, I don't think one could really argue that the culture has really changed a lot. I've lived here, most of my adult life. And yeah, you'd go through punk rock and you went through the different phases, but it's always been about I don't think the fundamental culture has changed, but I think the culture of Vegas might have changed, right? When it was a dusty strip and of course you guys weren't even there that early, but it was a dusty strip in the 60s. It was, okay? So New York City was not a dusty strip in the 1960s. So Jackie, how has the culture changed? Were people nicer back then? Was it more collegial? We were all in this together? Or was it cutthroat? And how has it changed? And of course, Clint, I'm going to ask you that.
I personally think it was more personal. The Eleanor Grassos of the world at the Sands and Steve Wynn, they were involved with their entertainment. They would pick their entertainment. They would go to the shows and see their entertainers. Now it's like cook it and book it. I just felt like we had more of a personal touch in those days.
How
I
about
couldn't
you,
agree.
Clint?
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, Jackie. I'll tell you a quick story. Okay, when Steve Wynn brought me here, um, he named the show. He came to rehearsals. He told me why he wanted to name the show, what he did. He asked me to sing a song called For the First Time, and that was the name of the show, right? Um, when it came to opening day, um, he heard me talking, and I said, I'm going to fly my mother in from Buffalo because she needs to be here. And he said, Oh, when's she coming in? And I said, Oh, Thursday at 3 o'clock. And he turns to somebody and says, I want a limo. Does she like champagne? Yeah. What flowers does she like? Oh, okay. Well, I want a limo at the airport to what airline the whole thing. He did it, told his assistant. There was a limo with champagne and flowers to pick my mom up on opening day, right? Fade to black. I go to Harrah's, which treated me incredibly well. But this story goes. Now I'm there. I am the face of the entertainment face of the hotel. Opening night comes. I say to the entertainment director, my mom's flying in, and he said, "Oh, go to the desk and see if there's a car available because we have to sign out for cars." And I went, "Okay." That Mowgli thing that Steve and some others that Jackie probably would know better than I, where it was hands on, I'm going to take care of my entertainer. I'm going, and now I would imagine it's even different. And believe me, I'm not putting down Harris. They did incredible things for me, but it was that one little thing that I don't think happens as much anymore.
So
All
it's
about the
really,
little touches. It's all about the little things that are important. And by the way, Clint's mother was a fabulous British opera singer, and I loved her. She was great.
Yeah, boy, and
well,
she can.
let's
I
get a,
moved her here eventually. Yeah,
and you're originally from Britain, even though you don't have a trace of that accent
but
anymore.
I can. You know, if you want me to, I will. No,
Whenever he wants
over.
to charm people, just put that accent on. It's deadly.
I came
Uh,
over. I came over as a baby, so I lost my accent. Yeah.
Uh, well, I'm sure you can pull it out when you want to use it as you just did. So I want to get a little bit more into the culture of this, and then our last questions are going to be what you've learned about all of this. But to create magic isn't just an accident, right? And I don't mean the magic, say, of Murray Sawchuk or other musicians. I mean the magic of hospitality, the magic, of that one vacation that an American is doing, or somebody from all around the world, and they're coming to Vegas. Does Jackie and Clint, do you think the industry is fully aware of that magic? Do you think that magic is still alive? I mean, is there a tremendous focus of, do you think, in hospitality to make this the absolute magical event that it can be? Or are we getting too businesslike? Is it too business?
Great. That's really a great question, and I'm thinking about it now. What do you think, Jack?
I think you have to create your own magic. And I'm not saying it, Clint, because we're on this podcast, but you are magical. You've always created your magic. People feel good, and it's like it's how you leave them feeling, as Eleanor Roosevelt said. And that's how I felt when I left your show, and I always feel it. And when we're together, I think that it's about what you have inside.
So
Well,
don't
thank
I
you.
don't,
expect,
I don't see that in every show now. I go and I see a show and it's like, I could care less if I ever come back here. I go see Clint and it's like, when can the show stopped? It's too short. And that's how I felt.
Well, I think I grew up in the Sammy Davis, Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
That was what I saw as a kid, you
Yeah.
know, and those were all. You felt like you spent an evening with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, these great Cirque shows. For me, for 20 minutes, you see all this, and wow, look at that! I've never seen that before. And then it's like, okay, okay, I saw that. I don't. The connection is what Jackie's talking about. I think the connection that in one entertainers have now. Um, I would agree that sometimes it feels a little like I'm doing my show, and I said what I'm saying tonight. I said it last night, and I'll say it tomorrow night, and I'll sing the song the way I sang it. And I don't think that Sammy or Frank or Dean or any of those people did that. It was whatever night it was what the performance was. Um, that's it. Okay, now you get into the technical stuff, but I was in New York the day my mom passed. All right, I was at the Cafe Carlisle, and mom had been sick, so it wasn't a surprise. But the phone call came in about 45 minutes before the show that mom had passed. All right,
Oh.
so I'm standing there in the hotel room before I go on, and I'm working with the director who looks at me and he says, "Take it with you. Take it with you on stage. Let it in." This sounds technical. Let it inform the show. Don't try to hide it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. You don't need to lay it on the audience. But whatever, and that's a kind of an extreme example of the fact that when we walk on stage as entertainers, we take our day with us. You know what I mean? Sometimes Sammy Davis said, "Give them everything you have every night. Some nights you have more than others, but give them everything you have every night." And that's personal. And I think audiences get that. They don't know it. They're not going to articulate it, but I think they feel that they got a personal experience that night. And that's what we all want.
That is so important, and that's such a beautiful segue to what I wanted to talk about, authenticity. You
Mm.
know, it seems to me that something, Jackie, that people crave more than ever when they go to Vegas or anywhere is authenticity. Is this sincere? Is it real? And what is the best show you've ever been to? Sometimes it's when the musicians put down the guitars or their instruments and talk with the audience, right? Or share a story and then get back and play. So, Jackie, what are some of the big lessons you've learned from your experience? Because people come to Vegas to succeed, right? In so many
Yes.
cases, they come with dreams. It's almost like Vegas or New York, and some of them really succeed. Some sort of succeed. Many fail. What have you learned from seeing all of this? And then one other thing, egos. You have probably experienced more egos and you too, Clint,
Understatement.
right? That's an understanding. So what have you learned from all of this, and what have you learned about egos?
I've learned to continue to be kind. I love to mentor new talent. Like Clint said, and we talked about technical. I was very good friends with Frank Sinatra. He was my mentor. And Frank, there was no razzle dazzle fireworks
Mm.
going off on the stage. It was like Clint. They came out, it was just the magic of them. And you either have that magic or you don't. When Clint speaks to one of my corporate audiences, whether he's singing or he's speaking, he brings that, if not now, when, and teaches people about living life today and not tomorrow. And I think that what I've learned is I wake up every day loving life and loving what I do, and I'll continue to do it. And I'm doing it 50 years in February. And I think that I see that in Clint. I think that he gives a gift to his audience, whether he's speaking or singing, and people take it home with them. And it's all about being memorable.
So, Clint, what have you learned
Great,
from
Jack.
this extraordinary experience of yours?
A lot, but in this sign behind me, if not now, when um, I had cancer 17 years ago, and I was lucky. I got through it, relatively easily. But what it taught me, and what I love to talk about, is we have to appreciate every moment, and we have to do the things that our hearts tell us to do now. you know not, oh, one day, I mean, sometimes it has to be that way economically. People's lives go the way they go, but it doesn't have to be big things that you do now. It's not like I got to take a trip around the world now. It can just be a change of attitude towards your fellow workers, the people, the band, appreciating that everybody comes from a day. I always work with a band, 5, 6 musicians. It would be like working in a corporate office, right? I work with, in my case, I'm the leader, but I work with them. I have to understand that they all come from whatever day they come from, whatever situation they come from, and treat them respectfully in that way. And in that way, it becomes the camaraderie becomes a group. Not I'm the leader, you're the guitar player. We're in this thing together, right? And that's something that I do and have done. And I learned it when I went through that moment in my life where I went, oh, I'm not going to live forever. Holy cow, I never thought about that. So how am I going to live from now on? What changes am I going to make in my life musically, and in every way that I could think of? And that's kind of my mantra and the way I go about every day now.
Well, I'm going to come back to you with one last question about how you share that with corporate audiences. And so, Jackie, let me ask you this, getting back to this ego thing, because I think you've seen it. There's some people like Clint and other entertainers who they know where they come from. They've never forgotten. They know that they, like anybody else, can be swatted off this earth like a flea. And then there's some who it really goes to their head. So let me ask you this. Do you think that the greatest entertainers put their ego aside, or that the greatest entertainers don't have an ego, and it's sort of sometimes the climbing up entertainers that have the ego, or can it just be anybody who has an ego? And the second question to that is, do you think egos hurt performance, or do you think it's irrelevant to performance?
Well, I used to think it was ego, and I think it's something different now. And I'm friends with a lot of celebrities, and I think that, like, I'll give Kevin Costner as an example. Kevin is probably the nicest person you want to meet. And there's other people. I just produced Keith Urban recently, and he's a doll. I think people misjudge egos for protection because I know Clint, you probably can relate to this. Everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants to touch you and feel you and talk to you. And it's like, it's funny. I can't remember who it was. I was with somebody and people just rushed up to our table and they wanted their autograph. And they said, I just want to finish my breakfast. It's like they have no privacy. So I don't know if it's ego or protection or, everybody is different. I mean, I find, most of the people I work with I'd call it user friendly, but they have to protect themselves too because there's a lot of crazies out there. As far as egos, I think a lot of the entertainers like Frank was secure with himself, and everybody wanted a piece of Frank. Everybody wanted to touch him and sit with him. And, I I think the most biggest egos are some of the people that are trying to make it and they're trying to act bigger than they are, that they should just act as themselves.
So, Clint,
Oh,
I
ego.
wanted you to comment. It's one time on a flying, I got bumped up to first class and I was sitting next to a very famous person, but I didn't know who he was.
Uh-huh.
And the whole time, I didn't know who he was. And he was
Yeah.
world famous. My kids laughed. But at the end of the flight, he said to me, thank you for not pretty much knowing who I am. Because we just had a normal, friendly chat, philosophical, no, not what you do. So, Clint, what is that like that Jackie's saying? Can it go to your head when you have people who are admiring you don't even know them and they don't even know you? Can that go to your head and is that dangerous?
Here's my thought on ego. Entertainers have to have an ego. What is our life? I walk on stage. We walk on stage, and we say to a group of people, "Okay, pay attention to me for 90 minutes. Listen to my music, laugh at my jokes, love me." And then at the end, hopefully, you'll stand and applaud. Okay, so there you go. That's my job, right? So that demands a certain amount of ego. But I look at it like this. For me, I feel fortunate that I Larry Moss, my great coach, used to say to me that night that I talked about with my mom, he said to me, take it with you and go share your gift. Share your gift. Go. And so ego says, I have a gift to share, right? The other part is go give it. right? So that's how I look at it, and I think that most entertainers do what Jackie's talking about, that protective part. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, when Michael Jackson was alive, they'd have to close a store so he could go shop. I mean, that's
Yeah.
crazy stuff, and I think that could get to you. But I don't think that's ego. I think that's protection, and I think that's like Jackie said. Let me finish. Could I finish my breakfast? And that person who may have come over and asked for an autograph may have walked away and said, "Oh my God, I simply asked him for a, to say hello, and he wanted to finish his breakfast." And if you're logical, you go, "Yeah, he wanted to finish his breakfast. Leave him
Yeah.
alone. He's not yours." Um, Quick story: a very famous movie star came to see me in New York one night, and I knew he was coming. And they told me he's going to come in after the lights go down. He'll probably come in the middle of your first song, and he'll probably leave before the show is over. And he came in. I saw him kind of come in a booth with a baseball hat on, and he sat there and watched the show. And sure enough, he left just before the show was over. The maitre d' came over to me. He said, "Well, he's in a place downstairs in a corner having a glass of wine. He'd love to say hello." All right. So I grabbed the people who are with me, my band, and we went down. And the first person with me said, "Oh, let me take a picture," and snuggled up in on the love seat that he was sitting on. And I just, and he was nice enough to take a picture. But afterwards, I said, "Dude, uh, clearly." He came in late into the show with a baseball hat, left early, went to this. Why would you? And he said, "I pay money to see his movies. Why can't he take a picture with me?" So sometimes that stuff is justified. In this case, the guy was nice enough to take a picture. But sometimes I wouldn't have minded if he'd have said, "You know what? I enjoyed the show. I don't want to take a picture." Right. I don't.
Well, by the way, I would think that New York City is a little different because I have to tell you, I never recognize famous people, but people
Yeah.
always do around me. Oh, look there, look there. And these
Yeah.
people are usually left alone. It's pretty amazing. I
In
saw
New York,
Rod
that's really
Stewart.
true.
Is that
Yeah.
true?
I've seen Sting walk down the street, and a couple of people just kind of go, "Oh, that's Sting. Oh, yeah." No one
No,
bothered.
no, literally, I was like walking next to Rod Stewart in Greenwich Village. Nobody even paid attention to him,
Yeah.
except the two women on his arm. But anyway, and I'm not joking. I'm not
They must have
joking.
been blonde.
I don't remember that. Well, anyway, so one last question for you, Clint. So how do you share this with corporate audiences, and how do you recommend to shake it up? What do you like to share with corporate audiences, and how do you do it?
Well, I actually at times end my talk with a song, um, because um, emotions, I think, are for me best expressed musically. So it's not like, okay, here's a show. What I sing is directly involved in what I talk about, right? Um, I have stories about the idea of being authentic in your communication with other people. If whether you're the boss of the other people, whether that's your position, or whether you're interacting with a group of people in an office or a group of musicians, or any situation where there's community. So I love to talk about that. I come from a mixed race background. My mom was a white British opera singer, and my dad was a black American jazz singer. And this was, we're talking 50s, 60s. So the idea of where do I fit, and how do I manifest, and how do I honestly be myself. Be myself. I think a lot of people struggle with that idea. Mine was racial, but there are a million ways in which people feel they don't fit. That goes into the if not now, when category. If you're not going to accept yourself and be out there now, what are you waiting for? When's that going to happen? And it's sometimes frightening to do that. Sometimes it's frightening to allow yourself to be everything that you are, right? In situations. So I have several topics that I talk about, but that is one of them. And the authenticity that I have learned. I spent a lot of my life trying to fit in, trying to be everything to everybody, and not being anything to myself. Um, and it wasn't until I decided, Jackie talks about my show in that I tell stories, and they're honest stories. And it's not the fact that they're my stories; it's the fact that they're everybody's stories. and that's how people relate to entertainers. That's how people relate to movies, to Broadway shows, to books they read. There's always themselves in there. That's that. So authenticity, the idea that we have to go for what we have to go for now, and understanding what holds us back, and walking through that door into that. And I think all of that comes together in being your authentic self.
And it's funny that ties so much into the little anecdote you told before about the way you treat your band members.
Mm.
It seems like you have tremendous respect for them. It seems like you put a priority in understanding who they are when they come to each session. So that sounds to me like another topic that we can all learn from. How, concluding, I think I am very optimistic that a new leadership mantra is coming in this world because it's simply better business. It's free enterprise, right? But it's better business to treat people well in the end, right, Jackie? If I
Absolutely.
treat people
Absolutely.
well, and one thing about you, Jackie, you pay it forward all the time. You have a whole history, I've seen it, of you don't care whether you get a payback on something. No, it's the right thing to do, and you're going to help that person out. And to me, if in our lifetimes we see the paradigm of leadership going toward the golden rule, that will have been a wonderful life to have contributed to. And Jackie, you are doing it, and it sounds like you are too, Clint. So thanks to both of you for this show. As you know, it is going to be next week up on our YouTube channel. We'll be marketing it throughout the year, and it will be in our library of wisdom, Clint and Jackie. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time today.
Thank you. And for
Thank
those
you.
out there, hiring Clint is a gift to your clients. So keep them in mind.